Hey honey, how was your day?
I called out, nonchalantly.
Good time on the green? Yeah, I had a really good day actually. I put that son of a bitch Charlie Fielding in his place. Today, he couldn't hit the side of the Empire State Building. Oh really? So, did he have to buy you brunch?
The grin on his face said it all.
Yeah, he did actually. It was the best brunch ever.
Kyle practically beamed as he remembered it.
In fact, I don't think Eggs Benedict and hash browns have ever tasted so good. Wonderful.
I changed the channel as he was reminiscing.
Hey, I'm gonna go take a shower, babe. Any thoughts on dinner?
He called out as he headed up the stairs.
I'll think about it.
I swear, he had a one-track mind when it came to food. I waited until I heard the door close and the shower head being turned on before I sprang up. I had about 10 minutes before he was done. Moving quickly but quietly back downstairs, I went back into Kyle's office. I yanked open the desk drawer and grabbed the container of pills. Shutting it quietly, I put it back in my pocket and crept back up the stairs. Slowing down to catch my breath, I resumed my spot on the couch and tried to calm myself down. The water was still running in the bathroom. Good. After another minute or two, I heard Kyle switch off the water and the ripple of the shower curtain being opened. Turning the volume up on the House of Cards episode I was watching, I faintly heard Kyle go into our room to get dressed. Then, I heard the sounds of his footsteps heading towards Hunter's room. Kyle said something which made Hunter yell excitedly and run down the stairs. That boy, I was always telling him not to run on those damn stairs, but it never worked.
Hey Hunter, go outside in the backyard and play, sweetie.
I instructed him gently but firmly.
Okay, Mum,
he said cheerfully.
Hey babe, can I talk to you for a second?
I called out to Kyle. He walked down the stairs in a hooded sweatshirt and jeans.
What's up?
I handed him the health insurance statement, without saying a word. He stared down at it for what seemed like the longest time.
I should be asking you that. It's just a mistake,
was all he said.
Oh yeah? Sort of like keeping sedatives in a breath mint container?
I pulled the container out of my pocket and shook it at him, the orange capsules taunting him as they rattled around in the plastic. I could feel his demeanor change. He stood rooted to the spot.
Does this have anything to do with Hunter claiming that you're a superhero who fights bad guys at night? The buried pirate treasure in the backyard, or the clothes he saw you burning?
Kyle looked stunned.
How did you hear about that? That's what your first thought is?
I exploded. He physically flinched at my outburst. Now, I was pissed.
Not I was acting shady, but how does my wife know? Please, just let me explain. Everything that happened, I did for a reason, I swear.
I didn't say anything, but I folded my arms across my chest. The universal gesture for start explaining, and fast.
Listen, some people were threatening our family. Who?
I wasn't about to give more than a one-word answer right now.
Mr. and Mrs. Ashton, the parents of that kid you used to teach, the one who got busted with the bomb threat years ago.
I heard the Tic Tac container drop from my hand and clatter against the ground.
What did Zane's parents have against us?
I rushed out. Kyle looked forlornly down at his hands.
Well, they have things against a lot of people in town. But me specifically. I was the one who informed the police about their son. They didn't just discover he was dangerous. I knew he was trying to buy a gun. Without that, they would have never had a clue. You're shitting me.
I felt my back hit the wall as I took a few steps back. There was no fucking way that this was happening.
No.
He still wasn't looking directly at me.
So, let me get this straight. After almost a decade, you're finally telling me that you knew a former student of mine was dangerous, and you called the police, and I'm just finding this out now?
Kyle wasn't looking at me. Unbelievable. He had the balls to do all this shit, but he can't even look at me. What a fucking coward. You ever get so angry you can't even speak? I had never had that particular level of rage hit me until that moment. I faintly heard myself say one word.
How?
I didn't even recognize my own voice at this point. It almost sounded like a growl.
Well, for a while when they lived here, a couple of us knew that the Ashtons, they just weren't quite right. I mean, you said so yourself when you met them.
He was right about that. At parent-teacher conferences, they seemed nice. Too nice. Their speaking style and courteous manners seemed rehearsed. Awkward, I guess, would be a good word. It just didn't seem natural to them. Not to mention, I always suspected that they had something to do with Zane's behavioral change. As I've explained, when a student's behavior changes suddenly, there's usually a reason for it. Kyle continued speaking when I didn't argue with him on that point.
Listen, I first heard rumors of child abuse through a couple of friends on the police force. A few neighbors of theirs had seen and heard things, but since none of it was solid evidence, they couldn't do anything about it. I wasn't the only one either. Others had similar ideas, but we couldn't do anything. Well, at least until the bomb threat thing. One of my more discreet contacts through work was the guy Zane tried to buy a gun from. The guy sold him the knives that were found in his locker, but a firearm was a no-go for him. My contact said that he didn't sell guns to kids, and that was the end of it. And then he told me what happened, and I put it together. Who would have thought that a guy who sold shit on the black market had standards?
I spat out.
But that still doesn't explain how they knew it was you. Well, to be honest, they still don't know I did specifically that. But after Zane got busted, those of us who knew the Ashtons were shady, we paid them a little visit. We managed to persuade them to hit the road and not come back. They did what we said, and all of us thought that that was the end of it. At least until a few months ago, when things sort of got out of hand. What do you mean they got out of hand? Well, I guess Zane walked out on them for good and disappeared for some reason. That pushed them over the edge, and I suspected that they blamed this town for ruining their family. Some of us began getting threatening phone calls from them, drunken cursing fits and the usual ranting. We just waved it off at first, but then we began to get letters in the mail. Letters telling us exactly what we had done on a given day and time, like, I hope you enjoyed going out to dinner last night type thing. But that wasn't the worst part. He took a deep breath as if to steady himself before continuing. And that was when Mr. Ashton paid us a visit where we worked. It was creepy as hell. You could see the dude wasn't all there when you looked into his eyes. No kidding, we met a couple of times at night to try to decide what to do about the situation. Sort of like a secret neighborhood watch type thing. Eventually, a bunch of us went to confront Mr. and Mrs. Ashton where they lived. I guess that's where Hunter first got the idea of me being fighting bad guys at night. It was about a month ago when we did it. They lived about 2 hours away, and both of them had been downing some drinks before we arrived. Well, one thing led to another, and Mr. Ashton thought that he'd try to take us. The drunk arsehole tried to pull a piece on us, and since we made damn sure to go there with backup, one of the group got his gun before old man Ashton. And, well, I don't think I need to tell you what happened next, right? He survived, but barely. Then Mrs. Ashton tried to have a go at us as well, but that went nowhere. Especially after we got her subdued and demonstrated that we now had evidence that we had of the nature of their behavior towards their son. Believe me, we didn't take any chances. Virtually any interaction we had with them before was recorded. That stopped her cold. I bet it did. I can't deny, I always knew Mrs. Ashton deserved to be put in her place.
The woman was always very aloof.
We told her that should anything happen to any of us or our families, what we had would be going straight to the cops. And for good measure, they agreed to move west until they hit the Pacific Ocean.
Kyle paused for a moment. Talking about this seemed to do him good.
After that, we all left and changed out of the clothes that we had. Since some of the guys got a bit messy, shall we say, they made sure to sit on a tarp I kept in the back seat of the car. I made sure that all the clothes that we were wearing that night were burned.
I felt goosebumps erupt on my skin at this. That's what Hunter saw.
Well, what was the big thing wrapped in it?
Kyle paused for a moment as he thought. Some of the evidence against the Ashtons. Other stuff was jewelry Mrs. Ashton used to try and bribe us. But believe me, none of us were dumb enough to keep it. They really had some really fucked up shit going on there. One of the things we found are keys to some storage locker. We're still trying to figure out which one. Wow, I can't even imagine what's in there.
Yeah, me too. That's what sickens me the most. We know some bad stuff, but there is definitely more that we have yet to discover, which is far worse. But don't worry, we moved the stuff we kept in the backyard. That was just a temporary place to keep it until we could move it all to a safe place. The pills and the things you said to Hunter about fighting bad guys?
My husband paused as he thought for a moment.
I had trouble sleeping after that, as you can probably imagine. One of the guys I golf with, who also went with us that night, recommended me to somebody. The doctor prescribed me something to help. I know how you feel about sleeping pills, so I didn't want to say anything. It worked, but sometimes I would sleepwalk. I guess Hunter saw me and I started babbling to him in my sleep.
Right. I had no idea what I felt anymore. I mean, it made sense. But believing something like that could actually happen always seems so surreal.
But I swear to you, that's all that happened. I told you everything that I know.
He looked at me, pleadingly.
Thank you for telling me, but I just kind of want to be alone to think right now.
He nodded his head in understanding and went outside to play with Hunter. They are still outside playing basketball right now. They look so happy, shooting the ball at the hoop above the garage. And then there's me, sitting here, trying to figure out what to think of all of this. Do I trust my husband?